Welcome to the webinar, Activating Retail Media for Consumer Electronics Brands, hosted by Pacquiao. Today we'll be talking about the evolving advertising landscape for consumer electronics brands and how brands can take advantage of new retail media opportunities. Before getting started, we have a few simple housekeeping matters for our viewers. At the bottom of your screen, you'll find some application widgets for your use. These widgets are all resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to optimize your desktop space. The slides will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button in the top right-hand corner of your presentation window. We do encourage you to submit questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Q&A widget. We will try to answer your questions during the webcast, but if a fuller answer is needed or if we run out of time, it will be answered later on via email. Please know we do capture all questions, and we want to make sure you receive an answer. Now it's time to get started. My name is Megan Billingsley, and I'm excited to moderate this discussion today. We're going to hear from 3 experts for this webinar. To introduce them, our first is Melissa Burdick. She's the co-founder and president of Pacquiao and is an expert in designing for online and e-commerce marketing strategies. A 10-year Amazon veteran, Ms. Burdick helped launch the Amazon CPG health and beauty retail business, building a business from the ground up with an evolving strategy to sell profitably online. She was an early leader of the Amazon Media Group, launching the first vendor display video ad, and developed and grew the Amazon advertising business. Ms. Burdick is well known as an e-commerce thought leader, Forbes Agency Council member, and participates as a speaker at e-commerce conferences and industry podcasts. Mark Heitke is Director, Ad Products, Inventory, and Yield Management at Best Buy Ads. He's been with Best Buy for over 7 years and is responsible for 4 core areas, including Best Buy's ad product portfolio, essentially the overall product strategy for Best Buy Ads, as well as inventory management, yield management, and Best Buy's audience stack. And finally, Erin Lastra is Senior Director of Business Development at Critio. She helps lead the retail account management team, which works hand in hand with Critio's retailer partners in helping to identify key growth opportunities to expand partners' business by providing consultative services, expertise, and knowledge. Prior to Critio, she was at Triad Retail Media, where she led a vertical sales team for the Walmart Media Group, which is now Walmart Connect. Thank you all for taking the time to speak with us today. So to kick us off, I just want to note how timely our webinar is. E-commerce sales accounted for $870.78 billion last year, totaling 19.1% of total retail spend in 2021. U.S. retail e-commerce sales are projected to grow 16.1% this year, reaching $1.06 trillion in 2022. Those numbers matter for consumer electronics brands because consumer electronics is a very online business. Already, CE accounts for 20% of U.S. e-retail sales. So to get our dialogue going, Melissa, I wanted to kick off by asking you, what are some of consumers' trending online behaviors when it comes to CE?
Thanks. That's right. The CE space has really been an interesting one to watch. Consumers used to head to stores to do research, understand the scale and use of the consumer electronics products, especially since average selling prices are so high and it's a considered purchase, much more so than CPG products are. However, more and more research is being done online. People are reading customer reviews. They are watching, influencers. There's such great content with 360 images to see how things work. A lot of tentpole events like Black Friday, Cyber Monday have kind of moved from doorbusters going to stores to online. Instead of having to wait hours outside in a long line. And then especially with inventory constraints with the pandemic, you can find a lot more selection online as well. There's also some unique characteristics as to how consumers shop online for electronics.
Melissa, if I can jump in here, it's really interesting to think about consumer electronics and how the idea of shopping for laptops and TVs and phones is a very detail-oriented experience. So much of what we have is now connected to various ecosystems. So you have to think about, is the product able to work with Google or Alexa or even your Apple environment? It makes it much more of a thought-intensive type research process. And when you think about that, it really does open up the opportunity for quite a bit of advertising. You have a chance to educate and influence consumers along that journey.
Excellent, thank you. And that brings us to our discussion of advertising, specifically activating retail media. Erin, how have CE brands traditionally approached advertising?
Have been very focused on product releases. When they have a new model or new features coming out, they'll focus their advertising on that specific product. But that's starting to change as brands adapt to the consumer behaviors that both Mark and Melissa just touched on. I wanted to add to their dialogue some insights from a recent critio study. We found that when shopping online, on average, consumers use different product pages. There were 10 times or more when making a large home appliance purchase, 8 times when making a laptop or tablet purchase, and 9 times when making a TV purchase. So a lot of browsing and shopping between product pages online. So for each purchase, they're looking at 1 or 2 brands on average, but they're looking across the website at different product pages. As they begin to recognize this consumer behavior, brands are adapting and adopting e-commerce advertising strategies to be more always on. Brands want to be top of mind when consumers at all times that they may be shopping, not only when the brand has a special product or promotion, but buying cycles are long, and you want your most relevant content to be there when a consumer is ready to buy.
Melissa, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, that's right. Historically, e-commerce ads have been really just focused on sales, on trying to get someone to convert. Right now, though, e-commerce marketplaces such as retail media networks are expanding their different advertising offerings into things like display advertising and retargeting, not only on their e-commerce sites, but across the web on different offerings that help brands be present throughout their full buying cycle. And that's highly valuable for CE brands that need to keep their products top of mind for consumers. And as brands take advantage of those kind of opportunities, they can apply strategies that help them find customers closer to purchase. So one of the cool things that you can really do with this incredible first-party data, and that's what's so attractive to brands, is hyper-targeting based on consumer purchase behavior. Because the buying cycle is so long, being able to find those customers in market who are ready to buy is really one of the strengths of retail media platforms. Being able to see the customer shopping behavior, see that they're in market and shopping for TVs, for example, and target them, especially with a coupon ad, has been a key strategy and tactic for the consumer brands that we work with.
What are some of the retailers enabling those kinds of opportunities, strategies, and tactics? Mark?
You'll see a list on screen, Megan, of a bunch of retailers that are attacking this problem. At Best Buy Ads, we've built a platform that really has opportunities on and off site. You think about a marketing funnel that a brand is working through. We are able to offer connections both through video, display, search, all the way from off-site and attracting customers through on-site to converting them. Now that works in 2 core ways. One is when they want to partner deeply with Best Buy Ads to help drive that campaign. But also one of the things that we've done, and a lot of these other retailers are doing as well, is partnering with technology and ad platforms like Critio and Pacquiao to make it easier to buy those ads. We want to make sure that the way a brand wants to interact with our inventory is as seamless as possible, whether it's through a high touch or a low touch engagement.
Excellent, thank you. And I'm curious, how does that work? Melissa, how do Critio and Pacquiao integrate with retail media platforms like Best Buy Ads?
Yeah, so Critio's retail media platform allows brands to deliver ads across a wide ecosystem of online retail channels and reach customers with a variety of ad formats and targeting options across all stages of the customer journey. By integrating with Critio Retail Media API, we at Pacquiao, our clients can expand their advertising to new channels really easily while continuing to manage their campaigns with the holistic performance data, flexible reporting, and smart optimizations that they've come to rely on from Pacquiao. We're unifying retail media all in one place so that brands can activate and see measurement metrics across all the retailers that they're working with, and they can capture customers where they are.
Partnership with Pacquiao and Critio, we frequently work hand in hand to go to market with our retailers to influence and educate brands on why they should work with our retailers like Best Buy and how they can drive value. Pacquiao is just an added layer of technology on top of Critio's robust platform that allows for clients to maximize their reach and while exceeding their KPI goals. Much like Mark mentioned, creating ease that advertisers can access Best Buy's inventory however they deem most effective and efficient for them.
Great, thank you. And Erin, I'm glad that you mentioned KPIs. Mark, what are some metrics and KPIs that CE brands should be thinking about with retail media strategies?
Yeah, I think, when you think about the retail media strategies, you want to start with the baseline. Roaz, kind of how are you doing for the dollars you're spending, right? What is that return? But one of the really great things that a retail media network can bring back is more interesting KPIs. So things like incremental sales, new to brand metrics, even halo sales. As we talked about earlier, brands becoming more and more ecosystems need to understand how any advertising campaign is not only driving, let's say, the core products of that campaign. Think of a Samsung phone launch, for example, but also how is it driving their penetration in the marketplace? How are they increasing overall market share within Best Buy? What is their share of voice in our ecosystem over the course of a campaign? It really helps round out what that dollar is doing for their brand. I'd also add just that it opens up the opportunity not only for CE brands, but really any brands in general. These types of metrics and the ability for retailers to use their data to help inform and influence that helps other brands, let's say, Nike, Non-Endemics, State Farm, other brands. We might not have all the answers for them, but we can help enable that as well. And it just makes it easy to work with us across the board.
Touched on halo sales. It's another important one to touch on too, because brands want a better understanding of how their products are really working together. Let's say Samsung delivered an ad that converted someone on Samsung's laptop. They're going to want to know if they were successful converting that customer on a Samsung TV. Understanding the halo effect of how brand affinity is playing into the ability to obtain and maintain a loyal consumer is really valuable.
Got it. So you mentioned Roaz, and that's another one that's perennially important and valuable for brands to understand. Melissa, are there any tips to maximizing Roaz when it comes to retail media?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because retailers are launching retail media networks all the time. It seems like there's a new one every day. But it's really important to be opportunistic when they do. It can be to the brand's benefit. We've noticed that when a new platform launches, it's usually cheaper and there's less competition. We actually did a case study with Hisense, which is a TV brand, when they started advertising on Walmart when Walmart first launched their platform. Hisense's campaigns immediately had a return on ad spend that was already 3x greater than the electronics category Roaz average on other e-commerce platforms. And then we also looked at the top 10 keywords in the TV category on Amazon, a much more mature platform. 84 brands own some amount of paid search for those same top keywords. There were only 2 or 3 brands that had the same share of voice on Walmart. So as you can see, it just was a lot less competition, and so it's a lot cheaper clicks, which means really great return on ad spend. Of course, platforms do get crowded as more time goes on and other brands jump in. It certainly has at Walmart, but embracing new platforms can be a pretty inexpensive way to gain an advantage. And all it takes is the technology to be able to scale your activation, and a person can manage it.
The point on Roaz is that return on ad spend is really just the beginning of what we can understand. It's important, but retail media technology and data combined give you the ability to really identify different touch points throughout the consumer's behavior. Were they exposed to this ad? How many times were they exposed to those frequency metrics? When did they convert and how did they convert? From there, you can understand the purchase cycle of when it's time to really re-engage and or target that consumer with affinity products. If they bought a gaming console, for example, that they're frequently going to look for certain games, so you can identify the right strategy to target them and influence them to buy that game for the gaming console that they previously purchased.
And I think it's really important that with the strategy that Erin just outlined, you're also working in a really brand safe environment when you're working with retail media networks. In our case at Best Buy, we've made a ton of decisions about how our brand shows up, where our brand shows up, the quality of inventory we can tap into in the offsite space. And in the onsite space, you're amongst Best Buy's e-commerce platform. So whether it's ourselves or others like you saw in the previous brand slide, it's a really safe and assuring way to invest your dollars. You know that your ads are going to be showing up in a place that makes the most sense for consumers and the most sense for your brand to be part of that journey. And I think the other side here is that we also have designed our ads to be integrated into the experience. I think one of the really fun things in retail media is that consumers expect advertising in retail. We've done study after study and understand that consumers think everything's an ad, which used to be a very bad thing, but I think it's really interesting, so that we design, test, build all of our ad formats to be consumer first, so we understand what they're engaging with, what's driving that conversion. But then when is the right time to introduce a brand to that equation? So when you're buying ad formats, whether it's with Best Buy, Amazon, Target, others, you're able to be deep in that funnel and integrate it into how they expect that shopping to go. And it does create a situation where we are additive to our overall customer experience on the site. We're not interrupting, a piece of content. We're part of that shopping journey, which I think is incredibly important in how your ads are performing and how they're able to break through with the right consumers.
Got it. Thank you. Knowing that, Melissa, I'm curious, what is your advice for consumer electronics brands when it comes to getting started with retail media?
Yeah, the first thing that I say is to get as much education and training as you can. Webinars like this is a great first step. Your technology partners should take it further. At Pacquiao, we educate our customers on how to spend their first dollars, how these retail media platforms work, how to handle auctions, whether it's first or second price bid auction, when to start testing and learning, and how to see the results. And we're not just training on how to spend the ad dollars. We're starting with how the platforms work and even more about e-commerce, which tends to be a gap in the ecosystem. Second, I'd advise brands to utilize technologies that provide unified work streams and reporting instead of having to log into all these different retailer platforms, download the reporting, and put it together with other reporting. You can log into a platform like Pacquiao. There's others too, but of course, I'm biased. I'm going to say Pacquiao's the best, and use this as one place to activate and then measure everything across retailers. Third, I'd say just to stay engaged with your metrics and embrace the support resources of your tech providers to help you and to improve the efficiency of your ad spend over time. And then last, something that I think is really important is to build a network of experts to join a share group where you can go to people, your peers at other companies, and get advice. What are they testing and learning that's working? Because you're always going to get kind of an objective viewpoint that way.
Perfect. Thank you. And why is now the time for CE brands to get started with retail media? Erin, you want to start this?
If they haven't, they are missing out. It's the pure notion of being where consumers are spending their time. Consumers are leveraging retail sites with intent to buy. They're beginning their searches on retailer sites. In fact, 2/3 of online product searches begin on retailer sites. So if you're not showing up within that search term, if you're not providing a suggestion, if you're not one of the top brands on the shelf that a consumer is looking at, or if you're just simply not surrounding that shopper as they're considering that TV or that gaming console, then you will miss out on that opportunity to convert that shopper.
That's so true. Brands are all working these days with high scrutiny also over the efficiency of those dollars. Every dollar they're spending is getting pressure to drive more and more Roaz, more incrementality, all that. So you want to put your dollars really with the partners that are going to help drive your business. And I think there's a theme you've been hearing during this entire conversation of both the metrics, the brand safety, and the availability help make sure that you're putting the investment where it's going to do the most to drive ultimately those brand objectives. And while there are plenty of reasons for people to continue to invest on Google and Facebook, though, there's always scrutiny there, the more transparent we can be in retail and the more we can bring that data to the table, the more we can understand and help support brands and their marketing objectives. You heard what Melissa said about even kind of centralizing that data. And as we contribute to that, as we partner with Pacquiao and Critio, it makes it easier for those brands to work and to see the total effect of those dollars across the ecosystem, which I think is good for all of us. I think it shows what that partnership is all about. And so with that, you want to become familiar with retail media. The better you're going to do with it, the better you're going to be able to be flexible, to be a little bit more agile in your thinking, and to be able to shift and drive performance when you need to. That might be, again, as was said earlier, through a quick promotion, a fast, easy on piece. It might be through a product launch. Just since we can support so many strategies across our products and our ecosystems, it's an easy thing to have in your arsenal to be able to pull those levers as much as you're used to pulling them in, programmatic media or even social media. Retail should be right at the table with that.
Great. Thank you so much. And I think that seems like a great point to close us out on. But before we get to audience questions, some final thoughts from each of you. Melissa, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I say three things. I say one, first movers have advantages. Clicks are cheaper. You learn faster than your competitors. You can gain market share and build your flywheel first. Second, build a network of thought leaders and experts you can talk to, and they can point you to the latest research, ways to make headway within your organization, and be just a great support to you. And then third, I'm not just saying this because I'm in the business, use technology to scale. Don't try to do things manually. Machines are much smarter than us. Sometimes I like to say spend time on strategy, not in spreadsheets. And so this way, let the machines do the work for you while you can think strategically about your business, and you can beat your competitors a lot faster that way.
I totally agree with the idea of not spending time in spreadsheets. I would add to what Melissa said with just the idea of learning out loud. I think we pride ourselves on how we develop those relationships, even in partnership with Critio or with Pacquiao. I think it's important to be able to test, learn, and learn with your retail partner as much as you're learning with your ad tech platforms. We're learning too. This market is changing so quickly. We want to be along for the ride. And so if something isn't working, we want to make sure we help fix it. If something is working, we want to double down on it, but we need to do that in a kind of trust and confidence with our brand partners.
And finally, Erin?
Brand and you're not investing in retail media, you should really immediately start to evaluate the opportunity to get started. Retailer sites not only serve as a search engine for consumers that are searching and shopping, but it's really an endless aisle for consumers, meaning these consumers have choices when it comes to buying online. And if you're not putting yourself front and center to that consumer while they're evaluating which product to purchase and doing their research, you could miss out on converting that customer and having them be a customer for the long term.
Excellent. Thanks to all of you for a really insightful presentation. And now for our Q&A session. We're nearing the end of our time, but we do have a few more minutes. We've been taking question submissions from our audience throughout this live webinar. We'll try to get through as many as we can before we hit our time limit. So our first one here, Mark, can you expand on what you mean by brand safety when it comes to ad placements? What are the risks there?
Sure. So I think, when you're thinking about the owned and operated platform of a retailer, brand safety is pretty easy. If your ads are on Target.com, BestBuy.com, Walmart, where they are. You're not in some blind network. Where it gets interesting is in the offsite space. So if we're taking our audience data and plugging it out into the open ecosystem, we're going to make maybe more conservative choices than you would as a brand. Case in point, Best Buy doesn't offer, we'll call them co-branded ads, but basically we don't put our brand into the news environment. We aren't really taking a position one way or the other. We just don't buy that inventory. And so for a brand that is comfortable with that, we might not be the best option. That might be a limiting factor. But we know that for our consumers and ultimately to break through them, we want to align your ad with the best chances that we've seen with our overall research, our tuning, which does create an overarchingly positive experience across the board.
Excellent. Thank you. Our next question is for Melissa, and it says, what are some ways brands can utilize Pacquiao to boost Roaz or boost conversions?
Yeah, that is like the exact use case to use Pacquiao. We have so many optimization features based on your goals, and Roaz is usually one of them that clients have. But we have automated technology. Literally, you can just say, I want a Roaz of X, and the machine will achieve that for you. But we also have some more control features such as we have a really enhanced version of day partying. There's like 168 weekly microsegments within day partying that you can structure and be very smart about certain times of day that have the best conversions, and then spending your advertising dollars during those certain times of day that Pacquiao basically identifies for you and automates. So really the automation features are all centered around your goals, with Roaz being one that you can select, or conversions, or sales, or efficiency. So.
Perfect. Thank you. I think we've got time for one more question here. So for Erin, how should a brand go about measuring incrementality, and what are some areas to focus on?
In order to understand incrementality, I think it's really important to define incrementality. The question incrementality asks is, how many of those conversions would have happened anyways without advertising spend? You know, many times brands wonder if consumers they are reaching would have bought regardless. So we really suggest, running A/B tests to really better understand. The A/B testing capability is basically taking a test group that was exposed to an ad versus a control group that's not exposed to the ad. It's that methodology, and really it helps us understand ad effectiveness. So, looking to see if the exposed audience purchased over the non-exposed audience, essentially leading to that incrementality.
Great. Thank you. That last answer will have to wrap things up. We are all out of time today. But before we sign off, I just wanted to thank you again, Melissa, Mark, and Erin, for taking the time to share your expertise and insights with us today. For our viewers, if you asked a question during the Q&A that we did not get to, the Pacquiao team will deliver an answer to you via email. Today's webinar will also be available on demand if you want to review anything that we talked about. Thanks again for watching.